What evil lurks in the dark? A question we have all asked ourselves many times. Together, we can start uncovering the truth and mystery behind the darker side of the otherworldly. And now your host of See You in the Dark, Michelle Roos.
Well, thank you for all who are joining tonight on another episode of See You in the Dark. My guest tonight really doesn't need a big introduction, but when we talk about how did the paranormal get started and who has seen things evolve in the paranormal from the way we actually do an investigation to how do we talk to people, especially when we're helping those. My next guest has had over 43 years of experiences studying and investigating the paranormal. He's had the opportunity to work with his aunt and uncle, Ed and Lorraine Warren. My next guest that I'm bringing on would be Mr. John Zaffis. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing very good. How you doing?
I am doing wonderful. The reason I kind of wanted to do this show with you tonight was, as we're watching the paranormal evolve and all the apps and all this type of streaming, I kind of wanted to get back down to when it all began. And you're part of when it all began because even though we've always had paranormal, it used to be a taboo and people were afraid to talk about it. And with you, your aunt and uncle, you kind of brought it back to life of it's okay, you're not crazy, let's go for it. So I kind of wanted you to let the audience know, a little bit, how did it all begin with you?
Well, again, watch. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because wow, that was loaded. Because as you were saying that, I'm listening and going, there's a lot packed into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, when looking at it, I mean, we went back to where we just had tape recorders and our cameras, and when it came into the social media or anything like that, it was non-existent. Computers were non-existent. Cell phones were non-existent. So I I miss all of that, to be honest with you. The basics 101.
Mhm.
Why? Because so much of the interaction is gone today with the people connecting, and establishing working environments with each other. That stuff, it's almost like non-existent to watch, the way things are today in comparison, going back, many years starting in this. You would get a telephone call. Hey, we're going to work on a case. Meet us up at the house. We would, all meet up there, end up taking 2 or 3 cars, driving, making sure we had our maps with us in case anybody got lost, and mapping everything out. That was the biggest, that was the fun part. Just trying to make sure you were able to navigate and use maps. Today everything's GPS. Do you know I still carry my maps with me? Because when they, when the highways get shut down or anything, I pull that map right out and I take the back roads to get to where I have to be. Many times that has saved me. But again, all that stuff is gone.
Yes.
People. A lot of people don't even know how to read a map. That's even scarier in itself, right there now. That as we have evolved and moved forward. But like I said, there's such a it's just a different world today. Any given time, there's multiple of different streaming platforms going with people out there investigating and doing things, and um, it's just wild compared to how I remember it. I miss when we would all get together and uh, do classes and things that were just the basic 101. It's
Well,
To me, again, I look at it where it's just so different. How do you feel about it?
Well, I mean, I think about it too at times, especially when we're talking about helping a lot of families. It's one of those, are we giving, doing our due diligence with this? Because we take more time with all the fancy equipments and things, to try to help them, but are we still, there for them? And I think we've missed that kind of mark there for a while too.
I agree. Um, Watching and seeing some of the scenarios, when I do end up sometimes getting involved with those situations, especially with residential, you and I have talked about this many times. All of us just basically keep that stuff off the board. There's no reason
Yeah.
to put a lot of that stuff out there. But, when I'll be sitting there talking to a family going back and forth and everything, they go, you're so different from the, X, Y, and Z that we had in here. They were worried about the cameras, worrying about the hot, cold spots. What were they seeing? What was happening? And I go, well, we're sitting here talking. I'm trying to just get a basic 101 on what's happening. Why is it occurring? And, moving forward from there. So I still look at it that way. I still do it that way. People I work with and everything. I could do the whole entire interview, Michelle, while people are setting up all the equipment and they don't even know what just transpired at the table.
Yeah, and I've seen that before too, and that's why, the conversation with you, you know, you did start at that very beginning, where just picking up the telephone, how hard it was for those families to make that first call,
Yeah.
you know? And so you did have to do that bonding with that family. I mean, you've worked on some huge cases.
Hmm.
And I mean, and I sit and think about it now, what if those cases came nowadays? There would never be any kind of resolution on those cases because people would miss so much of that.
Well, I think we see that too today, Michelle, with a
Yeah.
lot of the cases that are in existence today. With trying to bring any type of quote unquote resolution for the families or
Mhm.
for an individual, because there's so much of the focus now is, when people go in, they're more interested in getting evidence. And, did we get a good EVP? Did we get, cold spots, hot spots? There's so much difference today into what I remember and what was happening and how we would handle things. Am I?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily feel that it's, um, again, a type of a situation with the environment we're in. I think especially a lot of us old timers, we're a lot more guarded now than we've ever been.
Mhm.
My guard just goes up automatically with everything because our whole world is just so different now. Going out to investigate. We went out. Why? To help somebody. You know, they had a haunting going on, whether it was human spirit or something negative. The objective, our reasoning was going to see what we could do to help them, and so that they could move on. And that's even changed with families. A lot of the
Mhm.
families don't want to let it go. They want to hype it up even more because they think, all right, we're going to get on a TV show or we could get a movie or a book deal. So again, it's such a different environment.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've seen that a lot too. And so, we talk about how you had started. Of course, you worked with your aunt and uncle and things like that. So,
Mhm.
as you're doing these cases with them, at what point was it that you are like, okay, I'm going to start studying demonology and all that? Or was this something where Ed says, no, you're going to need to do it like now?
No, actually, he discouraged me. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, Lorraine discouraged me. My mom discouraged. Everybody discouraged me from getting involved with that part of the work, actually. And it's always been a running joke, and I talk about it. And I was 21. 22, I think. I was already several years already into just poking around, going to places, and wanting to know why. That was my big thing with the demonology. It was this big why, because at that point, I've already seen quite a bit. When I say I've seen quite a bit, and again, it was due to, the Warrens that I got exposed to things, being around Buddhists, medicine men, shaman, priests, rabbis. How many people can go visit their aunt and uncle, and you got 6 or 7 priests sitting having a meeting in their living room? I don't know too many, but
No.
I would walk in on those scenarios with our key figure people, within the church realm back then, Father LaBar and so many of them, and I would just walk in, hey, how you doing? Yeah, everybody be talking and everything, and I'd go in, go get a cup of coffee or something, come back, and they'd be talking about the cases or talking about what they were working on and what was happening, what was their next step, and you would never see that today, I don't think. Again, uh, it's an important element, but it's another thing that I missed that was there right in the beginning. All right. Well, anyways, that's what led me to the demonology, was all of that. And then sitting down talking to him. I mean, when I walked in the house today, when Lorraine, because I looked at her, I go, where's my uncle? She goes, he's downstairs. Why, dear? She was at the kitchen sink doing dishes. And I said, well, I want to know more about this effing demonology. And this is how we talked.
Yeah.
So, and she went, oh, dear. And she dropped the glass in the sink. And then she started screaming for Ed, and Ed came up, and him and I went and sat down, down and going through all. He was just going through all the different things, how your life changes, and your friendships are going to change, and you're going to have people turn on you. He said the weirdest, bizarrest things are going to happen. You have to learn to separate and keep your family separate from a lot of this stuff, because it could, destroy so much, and blah 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 blah. And I still, to this day, never got an answer to, at the point when the conversation ended, Michelle, and I looked at him, and he said, do you really want to do this, get involved with this? And I looked at him, I said, I'm not worried about it. He leaned forward and pointed at me, and he goes, I am. He goes, you're my blood and my nephew. Don't want to have to deal with my sister if something happens to you. And at that point, it wasn't like a big whirlwind, but there was this gush of air that came through. And he took notice immediately. I was just looking back and forth, and he shut the entire conversation right down. To this day, Michelle, I still don't understand what happened at that point in time. What was that all about? It wasn't my imagination. It wasn't wind coming through, because I know that difference when we get that gush of air that comes through, when something's occurring and happening, when it's regular air, coming underneath the door or something like that. That's not what was happening at that point. So, and then, like I said, I looked at his face when that gush of air was coming through, and I was looking left to right, and he ended it, just shut the whole conversation down. So, over the course of getting more involved with it, the thing that I found unique and interesting is that mostly spiritual people, when speaking to them and having the conversations, and they would say to me, you had a calling to do this. This was predestined. And I used to go, I never really quite understood a lot of the different things when spiritual people would talk about that you're already destined to get involved with a lot of this stuff. Okay, so that takes me to the next step that I could never get answers to. Was I would ask many times my uncle or my aunt, did you know I was going to get involved with this work? Never really got straight answers out of either one of them when it came down to anything. So again, it was always unique and interesting on the perspectives of getting involved with the demonology. So, I don't, as you know, because you and I are personal friends, I don't, basically throw that out all the time that I'm a demonologist. demonologist. I just don't.
Yeah.
I never found it to be an important element of my work. It's part of it, yes. But to be out there in the forefront saying, "Oh, I'm a demonologist," I don't care. None of that stuff means anything to me. But what I've learned and the knowledge and everything that I've gained, and I'm able to help people or help some of my spiritual friends out, or help a family out. To me, that's more important than anything else.
Yeah,
So
I was
that's how I
talking.
ended up with all this.
Yeah, and we continue, but and then last night I spoke to someone about it too, because when we were talking about demonology, people have to understand that is the study of it. And, so when you're working with that type of stuff, just like you were with your aunt and uncle, having that knowledge to know how to move forward is really what it is. So it's not just, you don't just have it as a title. The title means nothing. It's do you have the knowledge and the understanding so when it comes down to something, you're able to then go ahead and work through it, with those.
Hmm.
And I mean, just like you, I mean, you have seen a lot. I mean,
Hmm.
you have been on some cases that people nowadays sit back and go, What?" I mean, look at it. That's how these TV movies are come because they are that bizarre. I mean, you have seen the depths of hell pretty much with what kind of things have come to you, you know. And I think also you were destined to do it, because I always seen that, Lorraine was the same way. There's certain people that are chosen. And I think because you went in just wanting knowledge and wanting to know what it is about, why it happens, I think you were one of the chosen ones. And I am thankful for that. Um, but you traveled a lot of places. And when with you having your travels, like you've been all over the place, what Scotland, Canada, and all that. When dealing with cases in those different countries, did you ever notice or seen a difference of how they take it in or perceive it? And how, are they more open or are they more closed up with some of that?
I think the majority of the different countries that I've been fortunate enough, in different perspectives outside of the U.S., the way they view things and the way they look at things are just so different. I mean, I went into shell shock the very first time going to England and Scotland because over there they, they they accept the fact of it, and not everything is negative. So again, they embrace it. They look at it differently. And I remember that as I was over there for 2 weeks, that first trip over there, and intermingling and talking to people, it was just so nonchalant. And that was back in the 80s. And you here still again, everything was very guarded and very, revered, and not bringing that stuff to the forefront. So yeah, I think a lot of our quote unquote taboos here in the States, a lot of those barriers have, gone down. But I still think that, again, the way people view things and look at things are still so different. Like I said, your historical locations and the other places that are, hundreds and hundreds of years old, and they have spirit of descendants and so forth wandering the corridors and everything. It's embraced. It's not looked at as something they have to do something about it. The spirit is it's just so different, and
Hmm.
it's something I respect and look at. And again, one of the most important things is that you have to be able to move forward with an open mind in our field. Because if you don't, you're not going to progress. A lot of things that I would look at, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and think something, right away, somebody got bit or somebody got scratched or they got pushed, right away. That was the way we were brought into it. The only thing we knew of, oh, okay, well, that's demonic. That's evil. Now, I don't look at it necessarily all the time that way now. Why? Because if a person was mean and nasty in life, they're going to be like that in spirit form. Thus,
Amen.
thus, they're going to retaliate against the person just like they would in life. If they were an abuser, they're going to be like that in the spirit realm. So again, all these things have to be taken in and looked at and evaluated when it comes into things, because again, you and I both know a lot of times individuals are out there and they'll do clearings or get exorcisms, and these things don't work. They don't take. Why? No, nobody ever got to the root of why it is happening sometimes. And number two, people a lot of times just don't want to let go of stuff. So, you have to learn to adjust to that and accept the fact that, if you worked on a case or an individual, that person's had deliverances, exorcisms, and you name it, whatever, over them, and nothing is working, then that tells you right there it's actually the individual that's holding on to it, and they're not going to let it go.
I've ran into that a lot. It was like almost, holding on to the negative, almost like if they let go, it would give them an empty spot and they wouldn't know how to deal with it. And it's actually pretty hard when they don't work with you.
I understand it, I think, a little bit better today than I did before, because I would always go, why? Why do you even want to hold on to this?
Yeah.
Because that you just said the key word, there's a void.
Mhm.
And they can't, bring themselves to fill it in with something else. So again, that's where the difficulty comes in, because they're not able to, and they bring it back again too. If they are dealing with it, they miss the activity. Oh, hey, turn the light on and off, open and close the door. Sometimes, these people miss it. But what I think is an important element with this today is that they at least tell you. Before, they wouldn't tell you. I have a lot of
Correct.
people, well, they'll come right out and tell you without even realizing it. So right then and there, I'll go, aha, this is why it's not happening. So I'll be careful how I approach it and watch how I approach it, with the individuals, to see how they're going to react, and thus moving forward. Because I'm always, when I work on something and I walk away from it. Now, do I walk away from cases? Yes. Why? We've already done everything we could possibly do. Nothing's working. Thus, that's telling me it's the individual that doesn't want to let go of it. Other groups get involved with that. Oh, we're gonna get it out of there. Long and behold, they'll work on it. I'll get a phone call. Now we know why you walked up. Why you pulled away from working on the case. I said, I tried to tell you, if the person doesn't let go of it, there's nothing you can do. Again, Michelle, we go right back to that old saying: you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink it.
Oh, and that is so true, especially nowadays. People, yeah, it's just kind of, So, as you're going through this paranormal journey, you've got some great teachers, you got great things going on. What was one of the cases? What was the most, I guess, would say, not maybe the scariest case, but a case that you worked on with them that in your mind you're like, I don't know if we're gonna beat this one.
Actually, that wasn't with Ed and Lorraine that I worked on it. It was
Oh,
several
okay.
cases that I've worked on my own.
Okay.
That I would take that step back, and, after going through X, Y, and Z to do what we could do, and accepting the fact that no matter what was offered, no matter what was performed or what was tried, it wasn't doing anything. Nothing was happening. Everything was remaining, where the fact of it, it just wasn't letting go. And that's where I finally came to that realization in my mind no matter who, what, where, when, or how, it's not going to break it. It's a part of it. So therefore, with some people, do I think people, are tapped in to certain parts of this whole supernatural realm, as we call it, that other people aren't tapped into? I do believe that. Yes, I wholeheartedly do. So, again, and sometimes if you work with them and you're explaining some of it to them, and it can register and something starts to, evolve from that, then you're going to be able to help the person. But if it's something they're not even willing to comprehend or look at, you're not going to get anywhere. So I would say between working on cases, with them and working on cases by myself or, with my group or other groups, I would say there's been several situations where I would just say, there's nothing we could do. It's no matter how I do it, no matter what I suggest, nothing is going to bring resolution to this whole, uh, fiasco that's going on, so to speak.
Well, and that happens a lot. So I know, do you ever well, you do events at times. Have
Mm-hmm.
you ever been at a location where you're going in, you're going to do an event, they've been saying this whole time, it's a great place, we got friendly ghosts, like Casper, and you go in and you're just doing the event, and all of a sudden you're kind of like, okay, there's more to this and it's not good. Have you ever been in that situation, and how did you kind of deal with that?
I think more so um, over the past several years that occurs and happens. Why?
Mhm.
For the simple fact that everything is looked at differently and more out in the forefront. What do I mean by that? A lot of the locations, people go in there, they start practicing different things to create activity, if you will, because they want something to occur and happening, thus bringing a lot of different, energies in and mingling. So the atmosphere in a lot of these locations could change, and it could be where more elements are transpiring and happening. So that is, I automatically expect that today, because just the nature of the way everything is within our field. I mean, we got people, Michelle, that go out there that are doing magic, going in to do an investigation, and it's not magic. A lot of things are encompassed in that,
Yeah.
and we all view and look at that from many different perspectives. I do, because again, you have to understand it to be able to accept the fact of it, and understand that magic is in many different forms. So again, a lot of times when I say that to people, they'll look at me and they'll go, I never thought about it that way. I said, well, because you never have to deal with it that way.
Yeah, right?
Our lives within the paranormal realm and what we deal with, we're used to it. It's 24/7 in our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and, I've noticed too, especially when you're doing events, you're bringing, these strangers in to do it with you, and we don't know what kind of baggage they're bringing along, which then can actually fuel different things in the building that might have not been awoken before.
Correct.
And a lot of teams don't think of that, and so they go in very blindly, and people end up with attachments and different things trying to figure out what's going on. And like you said, it would be so nice that a lot of these newer teams would do a little bit more of this, old school paranormal 101 of basics.
Mm-hmm.
You're bringing strangers in. What can you do to make sure, everybody's safe, including yourself and your team?
Mm-hmm.
And that's been thrown out the window a lot. So it's kind of like, whoop. So,
Well, yeah. Again, I, looking at the way we do events today compared to the way we did them even 5 years ago was different.
mhm.
I mean, we would go in more prepared, more I think, on a stable level years back with what we will be approaching, what we will be walking into when we get involved with these things. Now, to be honest with you, when I go out to do anything, whether it's doing a historical site or doing a convention or doing a case, I look at everything the same today. Prepare yourself because you don't know what you're walking into. And that's again something that wasn't basic 101 always, many years
Yeah.
back in comparison to now. Now it is, go in and just be guarded because you don't know what you're actually going to be dealing with because it's such a different world with a lot of the different things practiced today.
I totally agree. We got people in the comments of course, The Haunted Collector. Was one of their favorite shows, and they're all saying hello to you. But
I bet.
I, I didn't realize that you were on Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah, I did a couple of, Michelle, it's so funny you're saying that. I was speaking to a very old friend of mine that, oh my gosh, we used to do paranormal 40 some odd years ago recently. I said, there's so many of the TV shows and the old radio shows and, different interviews and everything. All those things disappear a lot of times when a person, passes away or, their company's shut down. And even with the, different TV shows and different things of that nature out there, a lot of that stuff just disappears. And
Mhm.
it goes into the unknown archives out in Hollywood somewhere. So
Well,
yeah, there was a couple of times I was on Unsolved Mysteries. I enjoyed that. Yep.
I was gonna say because that's one of my favorite shows. I have, when I do live TV on the Roku, I watch the old Unsolved Mysteries.
Yeah.
So that's why I was like, "Oh my god." And then, thinking about it, you were also on, I guess, a show where you were talking with Pierce Morgan. I mean, how did that go?
That he was an extremely fascinating person. Again, he's from across the pond,
Uh-huh.
and they view and look at things so much differently. Now, when I had done that, oh gosh, I'm trying to think of the gentleman's name that was on that. He was on just before we went on. Oh, I know. Very famous actor. He plays a lot of the dark characters. Um, oh my gosh, it's terrible. That's terrible. Anyhow, um, just having the conversations going back and forth with him and realizing he he had that respect for the paranormal.
Nice.
Yes, he would bring up different things. And you know me, with my humor has always been the same. It's never changed. I
Yeah.
looked at him and I said, well, of course you believe in it. I said, you're from across the pond. And he just busted out laughing. Yeah, it didn't air, but when we were just chit chatting, and we would just start talking about different things. So again, it was a very interesting segment to do with them, and I enjoyed it very, very much.
Yeah, and see, and these are little things that a lot of people, like the listeners, didn't know unless they've seen you on it.
Hmm.
Because, when they know about Ed and Lorraine, and then it jumps from that piece to the Haunted Collector. And the stories that you have that have built up to all of that is so fascinating because, I look at you when everybody calls you the godfather of the paranormal, but the knowledge that you bring to a lot of us, like myself, is so valuable, and people kind of miss some of that, like, hey, these are good things. So, and again, my biggest interest always when we were talking is, the documentaries that you did, like A Haunting in Connecticut.
Hmm.
Everybody knows that one,
Yeah.
and that frightened everyone too, and
Well,
so.
what was it? What's important? To bring to the forefront with the documentary on the haunting in Connecticut was it started out that, they were just going to do the interview. Then they ended up bringing me down on set at New Dominion. I got to be very good friends with the producer. And we would be standing there and they'd go to do something and I'd start shaking my head back and forth. And he'd go, now what don't you like? And I go, well, if you do it like this, do it like that. I said, it's going to be super cool. John Kavanaugh. That was his name, John Kavanaugh.
Okay.
And he'd be up in the boom. He'd bring his boom back down to the floor, Michelle, and he'll go, now what the F don't you like? And I would tell him, he would look at me, the people be around him, and he would switch certain things around. We would move, different things, and he goes, that was fantastic, And then it got to the point because I was only supposed to be there for one day. I ended up being there for a couple of days on site, and we would go back and forth over different things. And to this day, I've always been very grateful for John giving me that opportunity because and he had often said to me, afterwards when we would communicate every once in a while, he goes, your input made that so much, he said, the credibility to it. I said, because I was there and you're listening to some of the factual stuff. So that's what's important. Then they decided to do the movie on it, and well, let's just say they threw that right out the window as far as any of the factual stuff, mostly.
Yeah, well, to keep everybody pulled in. And like I said, there's so many people out there of all the things that you've done and actually contributed to that helped keep building, the paranormal field as we see it today.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people, everybody runs around, and this one always gets me, it's like a thorn for me, is haunted objects,
Mm-hmm.
and I know you have your museum,
Yep.
and I've just seen bits and pieces when there's pictures, and I'm like, holy cow, that's creepy. Is there ever a time where you might be opening up a museum for people to come and see some of your stuff, or is it going to be something that you'll be kind of just behind the scenes?
Just come right out and ask it. What the hell happens after I'm gone?
I got some space. I have space. I still have some that's supposed to come to you. It just hasn't made it there yet. But aren't you going to be at the Gettysburg Bash?
Absolutely.
Guess what? You might be seeing some stuff coming your way, sir.
Are you coming?
I'm coming. I'm going to be there to help with a roundtable to talk about the darker side of the paranormal.
Wait a minute. I don't know nothing about this. Nobody mentioned that to me.
Surprise!
Cool.
So, yeah.
Am I on the panel or am I inviting myself?
Well, so I actually asked if you're going to be with me to kind of discuss it, because it's going to be more of a personal, for people to talk to us and things like that, to kind of go back and forth, not just speaking out to them, but kind of bringing it in. I did mention your name if you want to come, and Pam had made the comment, well, he's already given a lecture. If he wants to, he can definitely join you. And I was going to surprise you and say, John, come on over. Let's do this.
You got it, my friend. You got it.
Oh, that'll be amazing. But
yeah,
I was like, I might be bringing a little bit in the trunk for you.
Okay, that sounds good. Well, I might never know, because actually today there was 2 other pieces of property that I just called on to look at that looked halfway decent, within the. I keep looking and keep looking.
I know.
It's just, and a lot of times people go, well, just rent a place. You don't understand. You go to rent a place and you tell the people it's the paranormal. They go, I don't want you here.
Right? Because
yeah, there's a lot that ties in with being able to do it. But I'm still, I have several, realtor friends out there, different people in different towns. We still go back and forth, and they'll go, hey, Johnny, take a look at this piece, that piece. I'm still looking, but it's funny. Today I just went back and forth over a couple of pieces that just came out recently, properties, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take a look at those because it wasn't too bad.
Oh, nice.
So
Well,
maybe this will finally be the year where I can finally get a building and get all this stuff moved into it.
that would be amazing to be able to share it with people because there are stories there and be able to hear it. Because, if the people in the storage units would know what's in mine and has to be blessed all the time, I'm sitting there thinking on a Saturday night, it's probably rocking in there when you put them all together. It's just like, hey, party time. So it's kind of like, yeah. So I could just imagine your place. Oi.
Well,
But yeah,
the funny thing though is, but I always hear this from all my gifted friends and everything. I go, I don't experience nothing. I don't have nothing ever happen ever. You hear in the museum or anything like that, and everybody says the same thing. They go, you're just numb to everything. They go, John, I've been there when stuff is going on, and you don't even react. But if we go someplace, you react. When you're out of your environment, then it affects you. And I go, that doesn't make any sense, but it does. I guess if you think about it, right?
yeah, yeah. Well, because remember the first time I met you was in Gettysburg,
Yeah.
and you're like, "Hey, look what I've got," and I'm looking at it going, "Oh boy," and you're like, "Nah, it's nothing. I'm just gonna
Mm-hmm.
ride home with it," and I'm just like, "What?"
Mm-hmm.
So, so I can understand them saying, kind of being numb to it, because when you're in that element of trying to get it done, it does put a different perspective on it. So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, um, because I'm pretty sure if somebody came with me to my location where some of that stuff is, they'll be like, "Oh my god, girl," and I'll be like, "What? It's all
Mm-hmm.
good." It's blessed. So that's all I can tell you.
Well,
Um,
this okay. This past week, not this week, but this past week, I worked on two scenarios. I worked on one with 2.5 foot carved out mask that was causing problems. I had to remove it. Then I had to go work on another case where six dolls, collector series dolls,
Oy.
not the porcelain ones, but other, I don't know, the dolly collections. I don't know all the names of them, but where they had major problems with that. So it was like last week. I ended up with about 7 or 8 different haunted items in one week. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's weird sometimes how it goes or how it happens because it's just bizarre like that. Because then a lot of times I'll just be going, geez, I haven't heard anything or got any cases about any haunted items. And it's like the following week, all of a sudden I'll get involved with something, that could be pertaining to a haunted item.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's happened to me where I'm like, "I got nothing," and then I get a message,
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this doll is trying to choke me to death at night," and I'm like, "I hate dolls. Why do you guys keep sending me dolls?" So and it does happen, and then all of a sudden they just show up, and I yell at them in the vehicle. If they don't mind, I'm gonna pull over just so I can keep my sanity, but, and it's so interesting though because, that's what people think of, it's everything's haunted or everything's demons, and, sometimes it's really refreshing when you can, kinda laugh about some of this, like I said, knowing that you were on Unsolved Mysteries or Pierce Morgan, having just regular, ghost talk or paranormal talk, instead of all the others. Because we know you've been on a lot of cases, they've had documentaries on it, everybody has seen it, everybody knows your aunt and uncle. I mean, so it's one to be able to kind of have the other side of John Zaffis. You know what I
Anthony
mean?
Hopkins. Anthony Hopkins.
Oh, there's the guy you were talking about. Oh my god, he's fabulous.
Now, he was on Piers Morgan. It finally just hit me. Do you know he would not stay in the green room with me being in the green room
Why? Scared of
because
you?
of what I do.
What?
Now you try to figure that one out. I came in. It was with Michelle. God rest her soul. She passed away now. But as soon as I came in and everything, him and his entourage left the green room. And I was like, okay, they must be starting the interview, but they went into a different part of the building. And I couldn't quite figure out what that was all about. Then the show was done and over with and everything. And I was still talking to Piers Morgan for a few minutes there. And he goes, we had to move Anthony Hopkins because he didn't want to be in the room with you. And I go, but I've never met him before. He goes, no. He goes, because you're the real deal. And he didn't want to be around it.
What do you think? You brought your own demons to the show? I
Well,
mean,
that's what I remember saying to Piers. I said to him, I said, well, I don't travel with demons and ghosts all around me. And he goes, are you sure about that? And I go, well, no, but. Well, yeah, no, he would not stay in the green room because I was the real deal with dealing with this stuff. And I'm like, but all the movies this guy does, it's all, supernatural, paranormal stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He plays intense roles. It's like, wow.
I know. That just goes to show you.
So before we leave and all that, and get things moving, I want you to just take a couple minutes to let some people know. I know you've got some paracons you're going to be at. If you can throw some of those out there, so if people are in your area that come and visit you, because I know you have books all the time at your table and stuff like that. So if you could let them know kind of where you're going to be this coming up year.
Well, oh gosh, be at Ohio Reformatory in May for Psycho Club. I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but anyways, Ohio, the big convention they do there. I'll be at the Gettysburg Bash. I love that. I enjoy that so much. I love going to Gettysburg. I'll be at New Jersey Con. That's in November. I'll be doing the main Paracon. That's in September. Those are the big ones.
Big
that
ones,
yeah. Some of the more bigger ones that I will be at, and a lot of the other ones are the smaller events that I do with 20, 30 people, and I go around the area and lecture and do different things. As we speak, we're still waiting just for the book to get released, Trilogy of Terror.
Oh.
It's the fourth book with Debbie and Larry Elward, and it's going to be 3 major cases that we worked on over the past 45 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, we're waiting patiently for it to go through and to be able to get that out. That should be within the next couple of weeks, hopefully, and be able to rock and roll on that. And like I said, basically doing that, just lining all that stuff up, waiting on a few other big ones to see if I'll be doing those or not. I laugh because I always keep telling everybody I cut back, and people go, "Where?"
I was going to say the same thing, because I know when I talk, you're like, I just want to cut back, and next thing I know, you got this long list, and
I know.
I'm like, but I was so excited to know that I was coming to the bash, because I'm like, one, I've never been, and I've always heard about it, and I've spoke to Pamela, and she's such a sweet person. And I'm like, I finally get to see Johnny Lo, because it's been a while. I mean, we've talked on the phone, we talk on the phone, but other than that, haven't really seen you. So because you are that busy.
I keep moving around. I was disappointed this past weekend. I had to cancel one of my gigs due to the weather. We got it scheduled for this Saturday. This big old mansion that I never been in New Jersey. So I'm looking forward to that. And so again, like I said, doing the smaller ones, with the 30 to 40 people one, a lot of times those are a lot cooler because you can intermingle more with everybody.
Yes.
And you get to poke around and go in. I especially like doing things for the first time and experiencing things with people with other people that haven't done any of it before, and having all of us have the same things happen at the same time. I think that's so cool to be experiencing at the same time as them.
Oh yeah, I totally agree on that, and I like that because there's some places that I'll do events that are smaller, that you might only get like 10 or 15 people to do the event with you, where you can actually experience it with them, and it's exhilarating because it's like, oh my God, we're all doing this for the first, and it's really, really great experiences.
Love them. I love doing that. Yep.
Okay, now I know you have other books out and stuff like that. If people are interested in actually wanting to get any of your books, how can they get to them?
Well, I have an online store on johnzaffis.com or Amazon. All the books are on there. So most of the books are accessible. And anytime I'm at any of the conventions or anywhere, even by small little conventions, I bring them to there and sell them too. So again, it's just they're very accessible, very easy to get. Either through my website, if you buy them off my website there, the book, the store, I can sign them for you and mail them off to you, or you can go onto Amazon, you get it a lot quicker.
Yeah, they do overnight. Again, there's been a lot of, comments, people loving the haunted collector. You're actually a cool dude, from one. People are stopping in just to say hello.
Yeah.
And we also got Jay on, Jay from the 1771 Infield House. So
Yeah. I was
they've
just
all
with him
kind.
a couple of weeks ago.
Yep, I seen the pictures. Yep. What a great guy. So everybody has, kind of just stopped by saying hi to you, John, and everything. I want to thank you for joining me again. I love when we get to chit chat, and I sometimes still learn new things from you. So I greatly appreciate the time. I cannot wait to see you this summer and see what kind of shenanigans can happen.
Oh, we'll get in a lot of trouble down there. You know
Oh, I know that. But that's the fun part.
that. All right, my
Uh,
friend. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it.
yes, and to everyone that joined us tonight, I want to thank you for the support and hope everyone has a blessed evening. And then until next time, I will see you in the dark.